From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, the Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour is underway. Our first boots on the ground look at what got planted this year.
It's going to be hard to find fields in some of these areas because of all the prevent plant and things like that.
Covering all legs of this very important tour.
We're on the western leg of the tour, and in South Dakota, the results will be interesting.
I mean, I've never seen a crop this late for the third week of August. That's no secret.
Day one of the tour starts now.
Coverage of the 2019 Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour is brought to you by Pioneer, our premier sponsor, with support from IBM, RCIS, RAM, AeroVironment, Titan Tires, Farmable, and Farm Credit Services of America.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths from the eastern leg of the 2019 Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour. And after such a difficult start to the year and tough time planting, we've been anxious to get out in the field and see how things look for ourselves. Scouts are covering a lot of ground this week in both the west and the east, and we're covering it all for you. AgDay's Betsy Gibbon taking the western leg, which started in Sioux Falls. Now I'm covering the eastern leg, where scouts left from Dublin, Ohio and traveled to Noblesville, Indiana. You know, spring was a very difficult time for this part of the country, and so we've been eager to get out into these rows and see the hidden potential.
October 22nd was about the last nice day it was here until about the 27th of June. So the ground was physically not fit between that window.
And then earthworms.
For Bucyrus, Ohio farmer Nathan Browsey.
It was very stressful. It's been a very stressful year.
2019 is one for the memory book.
There's just been a lot of years that's popped into my head this year, but you got to look at it and go, what did you learn through those years?
Lessons, as he and the rest of the farmers in the Buckeye State saw nearly 1.5 million acres of prevent plant this year.
I keep asking myself, what am I learning in 19?
And after the first few stops,
4, 5, 6.
Scouts are proving that story.
It's somewhat startling to go into the field and pull out the samples and see how immature the corn is.
It's way behind. This last field we were in was just blister stage, and it's right here, of course. It's very dry here.
While corn crawls toward harvest in 2019, beans, as a rule, are short in stature.
The crop's going to need 45 days or more here to get to the finish line, and it just becomes more difficult to do the deeper you get into the growing season.
Leaving farmers like Browsey hoping for a long fall and a redeeming harvest in 2019.
You become stronger and you're wiser for it when you live through these years.
Scouts in the west are taking off from Grand Island, Nebraska this morning after a day of scouting in South Dakota. AgDay's Betsy Gibbon is traveling with them. South Dakota, home to 3.5 million prevent plant acres right now. Betsy, that's the highest in the nation for both corn and soybeans.
Clinton, scouts are looking at crops through Lincoln, Turner, and Hutchinson counties. Counties with a large amount of prevent plant acres in the state and also in the nation.
It is a long year. It isn't too big around, but.
A challenging year is an understatement for farmers in southeast South Dakota. What began as a wet start stuck around throughout the growing season.
Since Easter, right at 21 inches, and that was just 4 months ago, and we were wet when Easter happened.
Making history when it comes to planting and prevent plant.
I planted about a third, I put 2/3 in prevent plant.
Creating not only yield and maturity issues, but weed problems too.
Us farmers didn't really know what to do, if we should spray, if we should till.
And with the fields that are planted, scouts are seeing ears like this, ranging from 110 to even 210 bushels per acre, looking more like a July crop than a crop in the third week of August.
Majority of it probably below 130 to 140. Is that far off from this part of the world? It's 15–20% off what you would like to see in this part of South Dakota.
Not fully pollen age.
This crop has a potential to be, from what we're measuring, I mean, it could be 30 bushel higher, it could be 30 bushel lower based upon the finish that we actually see.
And soybeans need a late frost in order to develop too.
Pod counts are not off the walls, but they're also not very poor. A lot of 1,000+ counts.
A tough year farmers hope will not last into harvest.
It all depends on how long it lasts before we get the frost.
Reporting in Southeast South Dakota, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Part of the issue this year, prevent plant acres, and now we're getting a better idea of just where those prevent plant acres are. USDA putting the number at 19 million. Take a look at this map from the Farm Service Agency. The areas in black had the highest percentage of acres with prevent plant. Arkansas, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, and Ohio, where we've spent much of the day, all have at least one county where over 24% of the acres were prevent plant. Illinois farmer Dan Mitchell giving us an eye in the sky.
When you see these barren fields, they're some of the best land that in the state of Illinois that was either mudded in or is left unplanted. So it's definitely not a bumper crop.
And there are also a few farmers trying hemp as prevent plant. USDA's Farm Service Agency estimating there are 30 prevented plant acres of hemp, and it looks like the buzz generated by industrial hemp in the Farm Bill is getting the notice of many farmers. Take a look at this map from the American Farm Bureau. It shows where the concentration of hemp acres in the U.S. is right now. The darker areas are greater than 250 acres. FSA says hemp acres planted jumped from just under 28,000 last year to more than 128,000 this year. So far, scouts are seeing a really mixed bag as they travel across the state. Here with a little bit more on that is meteorologist Kimberly Newman. She's in today with today's crop comments.
Thanks, Clinton. It's been a tough season so far for many farmers in Ohio. Take a look at this picture. It's from the crop tour in central Ohio. Scouts counting 731 bean pods here. Soybean conditions in Ohio only rated by the USDA at 29% good to excellent, with 49% rated only fair. Meanwhile, if you take a look at our wind speed forecast, things are going to pick up in wind speed as we head through your Tuesday, especially into the evening hours as a cold front passes through the midsection of the United States. More winds coming in off the Rockies as we head overnight and into your Wednesday, and beyond that, stronger winds for the Pacific Northwest. I'll have much more coming up in your full forecast in just a few minutes.
Still ahead, we're just getting started on our coverage of the 2019 Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour. Up next, why the markets will find this tour so interesting. And something else many people out here are wanting to know about, the trade situation with China. We'll have an update coming up.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
The rains that fell here in the Midwest over the weekend were much needed in many places, including here in Ohio, but it did give the market a little bit of negative pressure. Let's get more now from the CNE.
The weather worries are a little bit easing right now, and so the market's really starting to work its way lower. There has been word out of Reuters that Chinese traders say that they can do without U.S. supplies. That has everyone really worried. We were down double digits in the soybean markets. Funds are also net short almost 80,000 contracts. That's also adding a lot of pressure. Corn was lower as well. Large supplies are, weighing heavy on the futures right now. Demand news is really negative. Export sales are almost awful, and Brazil's exports are operating at a record clip right now. So they're really taking some of the business that we would normally be looking at. But right now, all of the markets are lower, kind of quiet today, but we expect there's still going to be a lot of volatility ahead.
Well, we were able to track down Brian Grady as he is out wandering his way from Ohio into Indiana here on the first day of the Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour. And Brian, the market's been waiting on this information. What do you think this will help tell, overall the market?
Well, this is ground truth, Clinton. And, the USDA's survey in August this year didn't include the objective field surveys. So they didn't go into the fields. They'll start that process in September. So this is the first real ground truth on a broad-based scale across the Corn Belt. So the market is obviously paying big attention. There was some doubts on USDA's numbers that came out on August 12th. Not that, our goal isn't to prove or disprove USDA's numbers, but there will be some invariable comparisons there, and nothing we can do about that. So yeah, it is what it is.
This is always a pretty important time of year as we're kind of ramping up toward harvest, and you do see the market really pay attention this time of year. You expect it to be even a longer period of really having people tuned in to what's going on out in the field?
Well, I think so. You know, the attention's so high this year, obviously, but quite honestly, it's a very immature crop, and it's going to take a long time to realize, you know, what the crop size is. So this is the first step, or one of the first steps in that process, I think. And you know, it makes it more challenging by having the immature crops. We know that our corn yield formula works better the more mature the crop is. It's very immature this year, and as a result, we know it's probably not going to work as well. That's what makes it so challenging for Pro Farmer at the end of the week, because on Friday at 1 o'clock or 1:30 Central Time, we release our estimates, and those aren't crop tour. Crop tour stuff Monday through Thursday is into the fields, pull the samples, and put the data into a spreadsheet, and it kicks out numbers. On Friday, we take into account the Pro Farmer or the crop tour estimates or the crop tour calculations, and then make the Pro Farmer estimates. And so those are separate from crop tour.
Yeah, well, it is a lot of work. 1,400 samples go into this thing as you guys start to work through this formula and figure it out. And I know all of the markets will be watching not just your number this week, but what comes out and what happens weather-wise over the next month and a half. Appreciate it, Brian. Thanks so much. We'll be back with more Ag Day and your weather coming up in just a minute.
Farm Journal Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour drone coverage brought to you by AeroVironment. Maximize every acre with the Quantix and AV DSS drone and data analytics ecosystem. Proceed with certainty.
Meteorologist Kimberly Newman joining us once again with a look at weather. And Kimberly, some of these places here in Ohio needed the rain, but now it's heat and humidity that's out here.
That's right, and the heat and humidity, Clinton, have especially been an issue stretching from Arizona through most of the state of Texas, where they've been experiencing temperatures in the 90s and heat indices in the hundreds. Meanwhile, our drought monitor shows that is also the area that needs the rain the most. As we move forward over the next couple of days, rain showers will be lacking in that particular area. This low pressure system is really the driving force for any of our showers and thunderstorms that happen to pop up in the next couple of days. Let's head forward through your Tuesday. You can see the low pressure system sinks across the Great Lakes region. That warm front is going to allow warm conditions to really flow in to parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, and rise even far north into parts of Indiana and Ohio. Meanwhile, rain showers are going to fall for the eastern seaboard, getting towards the Carolinas, and this cold front, the driving force for our potential for severe weather as we get into your Tuesday evening. Meanwhile, finally a pattern change as another low pressure system pulls in off the coast. That'll take place as we head through your Wednesday. A high pressure system holding steady for parts of the desert Southwest, but a little bit of rain is possible Wednesday evening in parts of Arizona. That could be good news for folks there still coping with those drought conditions. Meanwhile, the heaviest rainfall associated with that low pressure system and this cold front here, where we see those storms firing up both Tuesday as well as Wednesday. Temperatures will react to these changes as well, so keep in mind where that cold front is. You'll notice very warm temperatures in Omaha. That's this afternoon, of course, getting up in those 90s with heat indices in the hundreds for northern Texas and the panhandle of Oklahoma. And there's not a lot of relief overnight. Temperatures are still in the 80s as you're waking up tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, a little bit farther off to the east, we've got temperatures in the 60s stretching all the way down the coast into the 80s, and 90s still hold steady in Phoenix. Overnight, and as we head through the afternoon hours of your Wednesday, we see a little bit of a comfortable temperature change. You'll see 80s instead of 90s for most of Texas. Meanwhile, our jet stream pattern really is going to be the driving force here as a strong ridging pattern sets up for most of the nation. You see that powerful ridge that takes place as we get into Thursday with beautiful weather stretching forward, but another pattern with a trough is going to dig in as we get into the beginning and end of next week. That's a look at what's happening across the nation. Let's take a look at the temperatures in your area. Monterey Park, California, 87 degrees. Montgomery, Alabama, a chance of thunderstorms with a high of 95. And Montpelier, Vermont, sunny and calm with a high temperature of 84 degrees.
It's not just what's in the fields that's on the minds of producers out here on the Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour. Trade also weighing on their minds of many producers that we're talking to, and there is a bit of movement when it comes to talks with China. Details next.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Trade also weighing on the minds of many producers we're talking with, including China. And there is some movement on China this morning. White House Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow confirming the possibility of trade talks taking place in the U.S. Speaking on Fox News Sunday, Kudlow said American and Chinese negotiators will speak in the next week or 10 days. Kudlow said a conference call last week between Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin had produced positive news. Now, senior Chinese officials are expected to travel to Washington for another round of face-to-face talks in September. Canadian dairy farmers hurt by trade deals are about to get some help from the government. It follows the country's ratification of the Canada-European Union Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement and the Comprehensive Progressive Agreement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Canada will spend $1.32 billion over 8 years to compensate dairy farmers facing greater competition due to free trade deals. The move is seen as an attempt to satisfy an influential group of voters 2 months before a national election. Government officials saying Canada is committed to fully supporting dairy producers once the new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement goes into effect. And traveling around here, we can tell you for a fact it can be difficult to get internet access, something that farmers continue to deal with. USDA now reporting a whopping 25% of U.S. farms still don't have internet access. That equals about 500,000 farms, and that number is only down 2% from 2017. Those that do have internet access get it through satellite, DSL, mobile, or cable. Most connect to the internet through a laptop. 52% use their smartphone or a tablet. Red ants are not good news when you're outside like this having a picnic, but they are important to Louisiana's sugarcane industry. But a new ant has scientists concerned.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Ants are never really welcome at a picnic, but there's a new ant down in Louisiana that has both scientists and farmers concerned. Craig Gautreaux reports.
No one wants red imported fire ants in their lawns, but they do have a role in sugarcane fields.
Fire ants are considered one of our most effective predators of the main pest of sugarcane, the sugarcane borer, and preserving those fire ants within fields is considered an effective biological control strategy.
But a new arrival to the cane fields is threatening the fire ant's role in insect control. The tawny crazy ant is displacing fire ants in some locations. And these ants have a unique defense against fire ants, an enzyme that makes the fire ant's hurtful stings virtually harmless.
So whenever they battle with these ants, they get stung and they're able to detoxify that venom and continue fighting and overwhelm the fire ants with their sheer numbers.
The sugarcane borer can cause a major reduction in sugarcane yields if it is not managed effectively. Fire ants help control the borer, but the verdict is out on whether the crazy ant can provide the same level of control.
Early indications suggest that they are also predators of the sugarcane borer, but we don't know if they're going to be as effective as the fire ants.
And they run around like they are crazy.
Their foraging behavior is much different than fire ants. It's very erratic, ants moving in all directions and moving very fast.
While these ants do not bite or sting, they are still a pest and an uninvited guest to your home.
They have great pest potential as structural pests and urban pests, building into huge numbers and clogging up things like electrical boxes, and they'll even infest vehicles.
Right now, Wilson is examining the influence the crazy ants have on the sugarcane ecosystem. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
As we venture into Indiana, Purdue University and the ag economics community are mourning the loss of one of their own. Dr. Wally Tyner passed away this weekend. Tyner started teaching at Purdue University back in 1977. His research focused on climate, energy, and agricultural policy analysis. That included looking into the long-term impacts of the trade war with China. Purdue University says Dr. Tyner will be sorely missed as they start the school year with heavy hearts. Our prayers go out to his family. And that's going to wrap us up for this special edition of Ag Day on the road with the 2019 Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour. We'll be on the road again tomorrow. Can't wait to see you then.
Coverage of the 2019 Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour is brought to you by Pioneer, our premier sponsor, with support from IBM, RCIS, Ram, AeroVironment, Titan Tires, Farmable, and Farm Credit Services of America.